Hello everybody and welcome to our proposed changes for the Paladin. If you haven't seen already, we've covered every other class than the sorceress, so that's the Amazon, assassin, barbarian, druid, and necromancer. So feel free to go check out the channel to see those classes if you're interested in seeing what we recommended for them. Just as a quick catch up, we are attempting to look at skills that are either underused or underutilized across the spectrum of endgame builds and give recommendations for either mechanical changes, thematic changes, or ways that they could be applied differently so that they could either create new build around metas or help to empower or change the dynamic of current meta builds so that we can get more build diversity in Diablo 2. But before we jump into the Paladin skill review, I just gotta ask, if you could hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, it would go a super long way. I'm not gonna show you the graphic because it always sucks to be pestered into something, but I think something like 9% of my viewership is actually subscribed to the channel. And if I could hit, I don't know, 10%, that'd be pretty rad. Thank you so much. Sorry for the self-promo. Let's get into the video. But we just want to start off with Prayer, the skill. For whatever reason, Prayer is the only aura that actually requires mana usage to heal you. Prayer just still has this mana cost applied to it, and it's actually pretty aggressive, especially at early level. And just in general, we'd like to see that prayer mana cost be completely removed. It just doesn't make sense, and I don't think we really need to balance around healing being OP, considering even a max level prayer isn't gonna save you. Defiance is a weird skill, mostly because defense is absolutely garbage. Please don't at me. I have this argument all the time in stream. But more seriously, it's an aura that would net you a ton of defense, and that is a cool concept, but you never use it. In fact, I would argue that the only percentage use case of Defiance is the fact that it comes on the rune word Exile. So, and I believe that this was actually a recommendation for chat. So if you don't know, we stream Monday through Friday, 1 to 7 p.m. EST at twitch.tv/macrobioboy. I'll put it up there, and it's always down in the description if you ever want to come hang out. But thank you so much to chat for this recommendation. What if Defiance, like resist fire, resist cold, and resist lightning, had a passive ability, which was for every 2 points, you can actually increase the max cap of physical damage reduction. For people who don't know, physical damage reduction is capped at 50% for players. And it would just be very cool if a skill here in this tree could actually raise that cap up, even if it was only by 10%. It would bring a reason to actually put points into Defiance, be really good for hardcore viable builds. And for people who just like to see their defense go burr and go straight through the roof, it would actually give you an incentive to put points into this skill. And it would just go further to cement the niche identity of the Paladin as having access to strictly better resistances than the other classes. The left side of the offensive aura tree has always been a bit confusing, most notably for Might Aura. When I think of Might Aura, I think of a strict power enhancing aura. It doesn't bring any utility like concentration, which gives you uninterruptible, or fanaticism, which is going to increase the attack speed as well as attack rating, but you get that raw power out of it. The only problem being that for the same points, you actually get less enhanced damage out of Might Aura than you do out of Concentration Aura or out of Fanaticism Aura. So there's just no reason to run this yourself. A really cool change to this skill that would also go to change up the general diversity of weapons that are actually used on the Paladin would be something like Might Aura doubling its enhanced damage bonus if you're using a two-hander. Now, if you were to whip up something like a massive two-hander charge Paladin that has to use Might Aura as a synergy anyways, you're going to be doubling down on that bonus. Potentially, if the numbers were high enough, you could actually incentivize Paladins to move away from their more notable counterparts, like Zealing with a Grief and a shield on, or just smiting with a Grief in their hand. Now you would have some kind of reason to try something other than max block one-handed sword and board. I think it would just go a long way to actually give Might some kind of identity, because right now it's just the worst version of the three options you have in this tree. Sanctuary Aura is kind of interesting, and it falls into a similar issue that Fist of the Heavens and Holy Bolt used to fall into. While the Paladin has this identity as an undead slayer, there just aren't enough undead monsters in the game to make you actually choose to run a Sanctuary Aura. So we think that should get the same treatment as Holy Bolt did. Make it so that it applies this added bonus to undead and demons. And now you might actually see a world where you have a Zealer build that uses something like Sanctuary Aura, because Sanctuary Aura is bringing on this magic damage component to it as well. And because it's specialized, it can actually net you more damage than the other holy auras do. The other cool thing that Sanctuary Aura could do in some way is act similarly to how Concentration Aura is going to buff your Blessed Hammer. Perhaps running Sanctuary Aura will also increase the damage of magic skills that are not Blessed Hammer, but considering that you can get Sanctuary Aura on Lawbringer, it does open up some potential for additional use off of the Paladin, and it would just be nice for Sanctuary Aura to actually fulfill some kind of niche role other than just knocking back undead every once in a while. Walking into the combat skill tree, I think you can see where we're probably going, but I'll go ahead and give you a hint. It's that left side of the tree there, starting with Sacrifice. The funny part about Sacrifice is that it actually adds a ton of off-weapon enhanced damage when you use the skill. I think it gets up to like 1200, which is kind of nutso. The problem being that Sacrifice just doesn't feel good. It has a cost that you have to pay, which is the loss of life, and it's just a slow attack. And considering the Paladin has access to Zeal, you're just never really going to use this out of like really weird low-level dual niche PvP uses. There were two different options here that we figure might fit into the niche or the identity of Sacrifice very well. The first one being that it would add flat damage according to the damage that it deals to you. You're literally sacrificing life to gain additional damage, and then having that modified by the massive skill damage means that there are some opportunities, depending on weapon choice, where you could actually out DPS Zeal. And again, this depends on targets, weapon speed, etc., etc. So maybe Zeal continues to be your pseudo AoE skill, and then Sacrifice becomes your single target ability. The other chance would be to have it apply open wounds. So the idea here is that you're bleeding, the monster's bleeding, you're kind of working as a simulacrum there. Just something that really fits into the theme of Sacrifice, the idea of blood loss, so that you now have this utility skill. So while it may not do a ton of damage, you have it as an option. Sacrifice just needs something to give you a reason to ever use it instead of its much better counterpart, which is Zeal. So the problem with Vengeance, or if you don't know how Vengeance works, basically it takes those numbers there, that lightning damage, cold damage, and fire damage, and it considers that as off-weapon enhanced damage. So if you had 200 across the board, it's like having 600 enhanced damage, but it's split between 3 resistances, and it's all calculated before your crit chance. So if you crit, you're going to double your physical damage, but not the elemental damage. And then considering the fact that all 3 elements are going to hit the monster's resistances, and this basically means you never really know if you're supposed to be dealing with monsters' resistances or dealing with their physical damage reduction, because the damage that you get is based off your physical damage, but your physical damage can crit and this damage can't. It's just incredibly convoluted, completely unintuitive, and the damage output isn't worth how difficult it is to actually build a Vengeance Paladin. And then it suffers from the same thing that Sacrifice does, which is that it attacks slow and you have Zeal. We talked about conversion a lot, and as it stands right now, there's no way to make conversion a build around skill. So it's in this weird limbo where it's crowd control, but in the worst way possible. The first change would be that conversion should always hit. If it's only gonna have a chance to convert, you should at least know that you're always rolling that chance, as opposed to trying to get past the monster's defense. And if the monster has a block chance, you also wouldn't succeed at converting them. The second change to conversion, and now this one's a big one, and I can only really theorize what it might look like, but I like the idea of conversion applying a debuff to the monster, so that when it dies, you literally convert it, meaning that you get a redeemed soul summon after. Think about it like a long form revive where you actually have to kill the monster with the skill to get it. I imagine them as like little Hadriels or little Tyraels following you around. So all of a sudden we now have a summoner paladin build. And while that sounds a little bit ridiculous, think about the fact that the whole point of conversion is to make it so that you technically have bodyguards, so that your physical damage builds can now operate more safely in a space. But what if I literally had pet summons that came out of the fact that you succeeded at converting a demon to the holy army of the angels? We wouldn't want these to be permanent summons. I don't think that really fits. And the idea of adding a synergy with redemption or possibly holy bolts so that they would deal additional magic damage. But yeah, there you have it. That's the Paladin. Out of all the skills that they have, the ones listed in this video are the only ones that I feel like are still legitimately lacking or do not see use at all. Obviously, when you're dealing with the Paladin, you're dealing with a class that's already very strong, has a lot of utility, a lot of niche role fills, as well as being able to perform incredibly well on a budget. So I don't want to see any of those extreme power skills that I already have go through the roof, but it would be nice to take these skills, which have clearly been a thorn in the side of the Paladin, no pun intended, and actually breathe some life into them so that you're going to use them on some kind of build. But let me know what you think. I've said this time and time again, these videos have generated a lot of really good discussion down in the comments as well as in Twitch chat while we've been streaming live. And I'd absolutely love to hear your opinions. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.